I'm Anand. I'm co-founder of Gramner, a data science company that's now part of Straive. Most of my work is with LLMs. I'm an LLM psychologist, and the bulk of my focus is on exploring how they think. That apart, I am actually most proud of the fact that I'm the only person in the world who has transcribed every single Captain and Hawk strip. I was delivering a talk and I needed to make a bit of an impact on the talk. I spent a fair bit of that morning exploring on ChatGPT what are interesting titles that I could give myself. Andrej Karpathy had talked about the need for how prompt engineering would become an integral part of everyone's life and that there is a need for an LLM psychologist. I'm also a huge Isaac Asimov fan and a robo-psychologist ranked well. So I just went on stage on LinkedIn, changed my official title with permission from HR to LLM Psychologist. And what I realized just before that talk is that not only am I the world's only LLM psychologist, there's just no one else with that official designation. A few other people have said that's what they do, but yeah, officially I'm the only one. And therefore also will always be the first LLM psychologist in the world. LLMs are very unusual if you think of them as models. They make mistakes. They make up stuff. They can't add, and you'd expect a computer to be able to add stuff. And this sort of a thing becomes very hard to digest when you think of them as models. But when you start thinking of them like people, then it makes a whole lot more sense. And arguably, LLMs are closer to people in many ways than they are to traditional models or any kind of computing. If we know this, then we can use principles from psychology and management to deal with these. We can create far more robust outputs by saying, have the work of one LLM checked by another, just like you'd have the work of one person checked by another. Have a team work together to make sure that computationally reliable stuff gets done by programs, but thinking stuff gets done by models. So these sorts of principles have enabled us at Straive to build things that are far more robust than people would normally think an LLM can do. Straive actually puts a human in the loop, which is not very common. An AI company typically says, I will do AI stuff. A technology company says, I will do technology stuff. But what Straive does is make sure that the client gets a solution. And if the LLM cannot do it today, they are growing after all, and they haven't really matured yet. You need a human in the loop to make sure that the client still gets the same kind of quality. And the willingness to do that and make sure that the client gets the right output, while at the same time using that as an opportunity to build and redeploy the training data to improve the model, I see very few companies doing. Prompt engineering is surprisingly effective. We are strangely intrigued to learn that if your spelling is wrong, the quality of the answer worsens. Why would that be? But maybe it's trained on data that when the input's quality is not so good, the output quality is not so good. But it is a fact that improved spelling quality increases the accuracy of the output. When you ask it to take on a personality, you are an expert in chemistry. It tends to give better answers when it comes to understanding chemical molecules. When you ask it to think step by step, it reasons it out, and that has improved the quality of the output. In other words, knowing the personality of these models, knowing the quirks of these models, and putting that back in the way in which you ask the question, which is exactly what someone would do as a psychologist, for instance, when talking to a person, produces better results. Having said that, we're also finding that many of these techniques that we are learning need to be adapted rapidly. For example, think step by step was a standard instruction that used to be given to most models to improve their quality. It's not required anymore because many of the newer models that are coming in are reasoning models. They have incorporated this as part of their natural behavior. So this technique that we have learned is redundant, and over time, many of the things that we discover will become less important. Newer things will become more important. The crux of it is to have enough interaction with models so that you understand how they work and know how to get the most out of them. The kind of things that you find when you go through the logs, it can be surprising. In short, we've learned that people don't necessarily know how to ask good questions. For example, we built an app that can build apps, so people can type a prompt like create this kind of an application, and it builds the application, and we review the logs. One person had asked, for instance, education dashboard. What kind of an app are we supposed to build if the entire input is 2 words, education dashboard? Or in another case, when we have to query a database and get answers from it, somebody said, boy, girl, higher salary. What? And we realized later that what they meant was by gender. Where is the higher salary on average in this data set? So, one of the takeaways from that is we need an agent in between that tries to interpret what the person is saying, convert that into a far more detailed specification, guessing what the objective is. Telling the person, this is what I think you meant, and I'm going to continue on this direction, and if you want to correct it, correct it. That's worked wonders, because what it does is has this agent effectively act like a business analyst midway and deliver a solution that is far more robust, at least to its spec, which it may have misunderstood, and the person can correct as required. In short, we're finding that the process of looking at the logs, understanding the behaviors of people, and filling in those gaps with agents is a powerful way of bringing in quality into a solution in an iterative fashion. And I think that's a big part of what constitutes operationalizing AI. We look at multiple things when we pick a model. What is the cost? What is the quality? And how does the quality matter in the context of the specific problem that we are looking at? So, for example, in one scenario, we used Gemini's Flash as a model because the price was stunning. It was roughly 1/10 the price of anything that comes even close, and it's a pretty good model. What we realized, however, is Gemini is more left brain than right brain. It understands images beautifully. It understands audio fantastically. But if you give it a set of complex instructions and ask it to follow step by step, after the 4th or the 5th instruction, it kind of loses itself. In contrast, most of OpenAI's models, they don't have that creative flair. But what they are good at is steady instruction following. When we realized that in this particular case, the balance had shifted, what we wanted it to do was to follow instructions more than show its creativity in understanding or even diversity of understanding. We switched models. And this is possible because of the insight that one model is slightly more creative, one model is slightly more obedient. These sorts of behavioral understandings, once it becomes institutionalized as an organization, it becomes much faster to recommend the apt solution for clients.